Yes, so
Excellent
now we'll
question.
open the session for Q&A. I guess Pavan
Yeah.
is. Go ahead, Pavan.
Thank you. Morning, Mr. Manish. Thanks for sharing your time with us on Sunday morning. I come from oil and gas background, and I've worked for about 15 years in Shell, HPCL, and Naira. And Ravi Sundarajan, who's one of the advisors of Nature, was my boss when I was with Shell. So I keep tracking these developments. I recently, BP and Shell have started working on their oil and gas again. Going back to the oil and gas investments. How do you think that will have a change on all these carbon emissions and net zero goals that these companies are having, and what would be the impact of that on the industry as such?
So till the time we do not have alternatives to the fossil fuel and reliable, secured alternatives to the fossil fuel, the energy requirement at the company level, at the country level, definitely do not have much solution. So nations and companies definitely need to look into having alternative supply, reliable, trustworthy, economical supply of energy to replace this fossil fuels. And definitely all nations are looking very seriously about this. But at the same time, if you see, the GDPs are also growing, energy requirement is also growing. And so the requirement for energy, for example, if these companies will not expand, for example, then again the oil and gas prices will do increase, GDPs may go down, and so that is the tough situation which is there with the politicians and with the oil and gas companies. But very soon, whatever the innovations that are happening in our energy industry to decarbonize energy sector, to decarbonize, and so definitely very soon we would be able to find very good alternatives like green hydrogen or green ammonia or other different technologies related to the storage of energy through pump storage, and various different sectors are coming up with the removal of the emissions that this fossil fuel, majorly because of the fossil fuel or because of other anthropogenic activities that are happening. Definitely we'll do fine balance very soon. Very soon means personally for me it may be more than 20 to 30 years. So let's see how the balance will come very soon.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Mr. Ravi is again one of the director with our JV, and every week we do discuss various different activities related to the carbon markets or nature-based solution activities. Yeah.
Go ahead, Pushkar. Pushkar, you're on mute.
Am I audible? Hey, good morning, Manish. Thanks for taking this session. It was very insightful. Just a quick question around from the business side of things. How does a buyer or a seller identify that they would need these services, and what are the channels do they understand that they have to opt for these particular solutions which were shown us in the earlier? Because I think this question is coming from the recent bill amendments which we had in the mineral and mining, I think couple of days back, and India is pushing for their own production, and we can see that implementing in both coal side as well as mineral side. So the new players who will come, how do they identify which entity to reach out, which is the best one?
So for the sellers, for the buyers, so majorly, as I mentioned, buyers are majorly located in the developed economies. So you need to identify where all the major emitters are there, or minor or small or large emitters. That means small, medium or big size emitters we need to identify, and then showcase the different credits which may be there in our portfolio. For the sellers, again, it depends on the education part. Some sellers, they do not have much information about if their project is eligible to earn carbon credit. So we usually go to them, we educate them, we take a risk with them, or otherwise, if someone is very well educated and very highly equipped with the knowledge, information, and money, then they do used to get motivated and go for their own. So I think I have answered the both how to identify buyer, how to identify seller. So sellers used to come from various different developing nations in the present voluntary carbon markets. And from various different sectors, like 170 different sectors. So it is again our consultancy skill, which sector or which specific area you wish to focus, either only renewable energy. So you may choose to go for a solar power project, for example, and then connect with all investors across all developing nations. So that is one of the opportunity source that you may look for.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
Regarding this carbon trading. We historically we know that companies, especially in pre-industrial area in UK and US, they have exploited the nature in terms of emissions historically, and now in COP27, which was held in Egypt, so they spoke about the carbon damage or the benefit that these countries have to contribute, and how, being a growing economy, how are we liable for the damage that has been done? And example, if countries like South Africa or India, if we want to grow as a country and try to match US in terms of their economy, if we are asked to pay carbon tax as an industry, do you think that is logical?
So that is the only fight that we used to observe between developing and developed nations. And developing nations always used to context like the developed nations are responsible for all these issues related to global warming, because they have whatever the GDP, whatever the financial status that they have achieved during last after 1970, for example, during last 50 years, they are responsible for the global warming, and they should work hard to help not only to reduce not only their own emissions, but also to help developing nations or economic or underdeveloped nations from through the carbon finance. Many developed nations are working to reduce their own emissions and also support the other developing nations through carbon markets or other different channels like adaptation fund or various different schemes. So again, if you see whatever had happened in the last 50 years, the developed nations are responsible. But now, at this point of time, developing nations are equally responsible. For example, if you see, if we do add three nations, India, China, and US, we all three nations, we are contributing almost 50% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. And if you see the reduction activity or the carbon markets at the national level is the weakest one as compared to the other developed nations. So during last 15 years or 17 years, specifically 15 years from year 2005 to 2020, various developed nations had reduced their own emissions. But now we can't wait that they should only reduce the emissions. But again, it's the equal responsibility for big emitters like India to reduce our own emission. But again, our ambition, the different ambition we do have is to attain high GDP, to attain the tag of developed economy. And that means we should have more and more GDP. And more and more GDP again will do add more and more emissions. So again, the ambition related to the high GDP and to get the tag of developed economy is inversely proportional to the climate change issue or the emissions that we are doing. And that is the balance we need to identify very soon. And that will come through high ambition that political leaders will do have. And if they will do miss, then it is our accountability or responsibility, the citizens who are there into that in those specific countries. It's our accountability and responsibility to create pressure over the political leaders to support the Paris Agreement goals.
Yes, I have two more questions. Sorry. So
Yeah, yeah.
since I come from the energy background,
Yeah.
so in terms of the carbon credits, so how is the price of carbon credit that is controlled, and who will decide the price in the international market?
So as I have mentioned, we do have three different markets. One is Article 6 market, which do not exist as of now. The compliance carbon market in within India, for example, we do not have any scheme very clear as of now. For voluntary carbon markets, we do not have any regulator over the prices. So we more than 95% trades used to happen on over-the-counter basis. Buyer need to identify their own budgets. Seller need to identify their own need to support or to get their climate finance or carbon finance. And whenever the matchmaking used to happen, that is the job of the companies like us. Whenever the matchmaking used to happen, the trades used to happen. And the trade price used to vary because of the country of origin, because of the technology, the program. Either if you do offer CDM VCS gold standard, so the prices will do vary. Then it depends on the vintage, the calendar year during which the credits had been generated or issued. Then comes the quality of consultant like us, quality of third-party inspection company, quality of the investor. For example, if investor is coming from mining sector, for the same solar power project, you may be able to get less carbon finance from sale of carbon credit. And if it's an IPP, then you would be able to get quite substantial. If the same solar power project is located in India, then you would be able to get lower prices. And if it's located in Africa, then you will be able to get higher prices. So we do not have any price determination mechanism very much clear, but it comes from the experience and knowledge at which position we have to position our carbon credit. So it's quite similar to the Amazon or Flipkart. If you see in Amazon or Flipkart, different sellers for the same white color shoe, for example, different prices used to be there. And whenever, depending on the relation, depending on the visibility, depending on the budget of the buyer, the trades used to happen over the Amazon or Flipkart. So similar activity, and Amazon is being supported through digital platform. In our industry, 95% trades used to happen over the emails or communications, not over the digital platforms. Less than 5% is the contribution from the digital platforms. People like to do their due diligence, their conversations over email or call or personal physical meetings.
Okay, and I have another question regarding the energy security. So we know as growing economy, our government is investing heavily in the solar projects and the renewable energy projects. So in terms of the variability of energy that that is generated using solar, so in terms of integration of that energy into our national grid, so the grid stability won't be there. So again, government is thinking of the energy storage projects. So what do you have to say about these things going forward, and how are we placed in terms of hydrogen or in terms of the entire energy stability for the growing economy?
I do have Rowan, I do have expertise related to the carbon markets, not related to the energy economics. I would not be able to give a correct or clear answer about the same.
Okay.
I have one question, perhaps, about the career path. So if we intend to choose a career in this carbon emissions and carbon neutrality on this track, so what do you expect us to be prepared with, and how do you think the career will phase out in the next 15-20 years when we see a rapid growth in the industry? If you can share
So for the carbon markets, I do not remember any specific course. For example, if you want to become a good consultant, or if you want to become a good third party, if you want to work with any good third party inspection company, or if you want to to work with a large emitter who is having compliance to buy credits or to manage their emissions from the voluntary or compliance market. So I do not remember any specific course. It is the knowledge that you have to gain from the public information which is available over Google. And I think, or otherwise, what is happening in the present carbon markets, you should join any specific company of your interest, having basic knowledge about the carbon markets, and then grow your career within a year or two while getting trained over the job, on-job training. Then you gain the expertise, because to gain structured knowledge, I do believe related to the carbon markets, either voluntary or compliance, there is no any specific course which is available in the markets. Like, you may do various sustainability related courses, or maybe within your master's degree, all those knowledge courses must be there within the curriculum, like to learn how GRI works, or get GRI certified professional, how CDP works, how to determine the carbon footprint from scope 1, 2, and 3. So these are the basic knowledge or information. If you would be having, then start your career either with the consulting company or third-party inspection company, or maybe with the corporate, or which comes from the equity background, or maybe that means the investment background, or maybe the large emitters, for example, like Qantas, or maybe airlines, or like airports, or big steel companies or cement companies. So you may choose to start, and then on-job training is the only solution which is there at the present point in time. You may be able to find few courses, I do not remember, over Google from the international universities, but need to check their course curriculum, either if they will do support the starting point if you are looking for the same. And all the markets are evolving, like Article 6 market is evolving. We do not have any present guidelines, clear guidelines as of now. So that is why the structured courses are also not there. So if you will go to the United Nations University also, which is many online courses are available over that Article 6 voluntary carbon market, 6.2, 6.4 markets. Or again, you may like to get subscription of various consulting companies, or third-party inspection companies, or companies, the big emitters, or the program regulators like CDM, VCS, GS, and then get the strategic knowledge, whatever they are disseminating through their monthly newsletters.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Pawan.
So I do have a question for you. So we do see that it no longer, like as earlier mentioned, right? So companies don't really see adopting eco-friendly solutions as a strategic shift. They really do look at it as a strategic advantage now. So it's no longer about the fiscal benefits, it's also the advantage that comes with it. So could you maybe shed some light on it as to why there is a paradigm shift?
Paradigm shift, maybe you can consider 4 different driving forces. One is the peer pressure. So, for example, Delhi Airport, Mumbai Airport, obviously their management might have got intended to offer the best sustainability related practices, but since we do not have any voluntary requirement, we do not have any compliance requirement. Voluntary requirement means no one, no user, airport user, for example, they do ask airports that you should become carbon neutral airport or net zero airport, and then only I will do use your airport. So that is there is no any voluntary requirement from the users. There is no any compliance requirement from the nation, but that is the peer pressure, because Heathrow Airport is doing, because London Airport, London, that means New York Airport is doing. So this is the peer pressure that used to come over the companies. So the first one is either management feels equally responsible to offer these sustainable practices or sustainable pathways. The second one is a peer pressure. Third one is the sustainable supply chain pressure. So if you are supplying your, for example, lace or sole to Puma or Adidas, they have mandated that whosoever will do manufacture with 100% renewable energy or carbon neutral products or services, then only they will do buy because of their sustainable supply chain requirements. So that is the third driver. First driver I have mentioned, the management itself, leaders, they will do decide by their own. Second one is sustainable supply chain. Third one is peer pressure. Fourth one is from the equity markets or from the investors. Like if you have gone through this one, what is the specific name? I'm not able to remember. ESG requirement. So many investors are now asking for the ESG ratings or ESG focused funds are also there, which is available in the market, and they do used to invest to the companies who are highly aligned with the ESG requirements. So these are also this is also one of the driving force which is there in our market. Then CBAM is another fear that had created companies to offer the sustainable pathways. CBAM means cross-border adjustment mechanism, wherein major developed nations like Europe, they are going to impose carbon tax over the products which are manufactured in nations. Which, for example, if you are manufacturing cement in India, and if that specific company is emitting higher than the cement company's average in Europe, then you need to pay carbon tax to export your cement to the European Union borders. Again, the national compliances forcing companies to offer the sustainable pathways like CCTS, Carbon Credit Trading Scheme within India under Energy Conservation Act. So either if it's a voluntary action or if it's the compliance or peer pressure or industry pressure that is coming over the industry. So these are various companies, for various sectors, they do have various motives to offer all these pathways.
Got it, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes, Santosh.
This is with regards to the push in the EV market in India.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Even though EV market is coming up in a very large scale, the carbon neutrality of these companies are still a question.
Yeah.
The emissions might be reduced very much, but carbon neutrality, no, I don't think any company is complying to carbon neutrality in production of vehicle as well as the battery. How sustainable is the EV market, and how what do you call that? Are they planning to achieve carbon neutrality at any point? That's my question.
So what nations are doing, they are pushing various sectors to get electrified. And at the present scenario, if you are pushing many electrical vehicles in Delhi, for example, to improve its air quality, you are shifting the emissions to the areas where coal-based power plants are located, for example, in Jharkhand. So that is the shift of emissions that is happening from one city to another city. At the same time, nations are trying hard to increase the renewable energy contribution through green hydrogen, for example, or through renewable energy sources. So at the present point in time, that is the shifting of emissions from one city to another city. But very soon, once we do achieve or we do decarbonize our energy sector, the issue related to the carbon neutrality or net zero thing for any specific sector like EV definitely going to shift. But definitely that is the good shift I do personally believe happening to reduce the emissions from one city and then shift to another city and then replace that specific source of energy with the help of renewable energy sources. So that is a good move, I do believe. But during next 5 to 10 years, again, that is not the good choice. But in the near future, after 10 years, surely that should be a very good decision that governments are taking.
Okay, so my second question is regarding disposal. that is basically garbage management, that is waste disposal and garbage management. So the only option available with us is either we dispose it in a specific area and burn it. That's what all plastic waste disposal is happening. What is the effect of that on emission content in if you see it as an overall scenario in our country, and any concrete steps towards plastic waste disposal, which is a big backdrop. We have a huge void in that sector of garbage and waste disposal, especially by non-burning means, recycling and other things. So, any inputs on that?
Yes, Santosh. So, at the national level, we do have EPR, Extended Producer Responsibility Act, or accountability or responsibility from Government of India. Starting with plastic credits or plastic recycling, it is working very well as of my information. Now, Government of India had added more verticals coming from the other waste sectors like tires, like batteries, like PV, photovoltaic cells, various different sectors, electronic waste. Various different sectors are there, which Government of India is trying to regularize the circular economy concept within India through EPR. And for electric vehicle batteries, again, this is going to, they are going to, that means all these regulations are at the nascent stage after plastic. But very soon, all these companies who are manufacturing or putting their products into the economy, it would be their accountability or responsibility in the EPR to recycle the same, starting with smaller percentages, and then we'll go to the larger or bigger percentages.
Thank you so much.
So I just have a additional question regarding this cross-border adjustment, CBAM, whatever you spoke about. So in terms of example, as an industry, if I'm producing 1 ton of steel, which costs around 80,000, and countries like UK, EU, or Australia are trying to implement this CBAM very soon. So if my steel is costing at 80,000 and they implement this carbon tax, and I end up paying 15 or 20,000 more. So don't you think our export companies are at negative situation?
$1 billion, multi-billion dollars is the impact that the nations like India, China, Brazil, or maybe other developed nations also, because the specific emission within Europe, like European Union is working for last 15, 17 years to reduce its emissions, and they have gained very good, you can say, unique selling proposition, or you can say very unique position during last 15, 17 years, while other developed nations and developing nations, they were not able to achieve the same, and they were not very much ambitious at that point in time. Now, people are getting ambitious, nations are getting ambitious, and European Union is trying to secure 2-3 things. One is shifting of emissions from European Union to other nations because of this carbon tax within European Union, or not carbon tax, but because of EU ETS, European Union Emission Trading Scheme. Many companies are facing a difficulty to manufacture within Europe and then supply within Europe, because the companies or nations, other developing nations like India and China, they are emitting high, and then because of the lower cost, they are able to supply a good number of products within European Union. So one is what they are trying to do is, one is to stop shifting of their businesses from European Union to other nations, stop shifting their emissions, indirect emissions from European Union to other nations. And again, if we do create the exports, it will do help more and more companies to develop within European Union. And so they are trying to secure emissions and GDP both.
Thank you, sir.
So that CBAM is not only applicable on India, it would be applicable on all developing and developed nations. And depending on the specific sector, for example, if you are producing steel within India, then each nation may be having different specific emissions for manufacturing of 1 ton of steel. And so if someone is highly aligned, then they would be able to export. If someone is not aligned, then again, it would create a big barrier of multi-billion dollars that dent will definitely come to the economies very soon. All right, so should we close, Anju?
Sir, one last question.
Yeah.
Sir, the question is regarding the measurement of emissions, the carbon emissions. So reduction is a challenge, but I wanted to know how a large manufacturing company is approaching the measurement of emission itself, like in the various stages of its production process, how it is measuring. In the Indian context, is it viable to have an external agency do it, or companies are developing their in-house capability to do it?
So it depends if some company and they do have internal capacity related to identification of those 7 greenhouse gases, their emission sources, and then calculate by summing up whatever the emissions that they are doing. The emissions used to calculate over 3 different categories: scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, through 7 different gases. So it depends or company to company level. Either if they do have internal capacity, then they will do by their own. They do have internal softwares which can measure everything very accurately, then they will do their by own. Otherwise, consultants or external service providers, software service providers, they do have very good opportunity to grow in this industry while having emergence of national carbon markets or global carbon markets.
Okay, so thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you,
Tushar.
sir. Thanks, Tushar. So closing in for today's session, thank you so much, sir, for joining on a weekend, giving us your time on Sunday, and of course for extending our agreed time over to answer all the questions from our enthusiastic participants. So thank you so much for your time. I'm sure the learnings from today's session will extend beyond this virtual classroom setting. And as future business leaders, will be able to see carbon markets not just as economic tools, but as avenues to develop sustainable growth within our companies and the society. So thank you everyone for your time, and thank you, sir, for joining in today.
Yes, thank you, Priyanka. Thank you, Anju, and all different participants. Thank you very much.